Hello, career thought leaders. Good to see you today. And we are going to be talking about the World Economic Jobs 2025 report, what the future of jobs looks like and what that means for your clients. So say hello, drop a note in the chat. Let me know you're joining me. And I'd love to hear how this impacts your clients. Now, we're not going to just talk about the predictions and some of the numbers, although we will. We're also going to talk about what does that mean for your clients right now, and what do you want to be doing with this information, because it's great information to have, but what does it mean, and how does it impact your clients right now and in the near future? So I am a big fan of the World Economic Forum jobs report. It's not a survey of a huge number of people. It's 1,000 businesses, but it's asking them to predict what they're going to need. It's not just looking backwards. So we'll also look briefly at some of the LinkedIn data, which is predictions based on the last 3 years. And the World Economic Forum report does take those things into account, but it also does the survey that asks people, what are you going to need in the future? And that gives us a little bit different perspective. Also, it is global, so it gives us a little bit different perspective than what we get from just looking at US-centric data. LinkedIn data is also a little bit global, but when you dig deeper, a lot of times their predictions and things are based mostly on US data. So let's get into it and look at what we've got. So you might remember that over the past 4 years now, so in 2021, we looked at the World Economic Forum report, and it said there was going to be an overall gain of 12 million jobs when you look at things lost and some gains in jobs as well. And then in 2023, it said there's going to be 14 million jobs lost, and it predicted that. This year, I had to look at it 2 or 3 times, because when you pull up the data, you'll see why. So hi, Anthony. It's good to see you. Hi, Anne. Good to see you. Hi, John. Good to see you as well. Wonderful. Okay, so let's jump in here. And if you haven't had a chance to look at this yet, I will share the link where you can download it, World Economic Forum report. Not too hard to find, thankfully. But this is kind of the big story here, is that, let me see if we can zoom in on this a little bit more. This is, so in the next 5 years, 170 million jobs created and 92 million jobs displaced. So this is like, again, I had to read it twice, because we'd gone from 12 million lost, or 12 million gain, 14 million lost. Now all of a sudden we have 78 million predicted job growth. And just like, wow, right? We hear all this stuff about AI taking jobs, and this is amazing to me that it's just so different. It's like, right, almost an order of magnitude different from what they had predicted before in terms of gains and losses. So this is very, it's very uplifting, right? It's yes, there's going to be plenty of work to do. The challenge that we have is helping our clients get ready for the jobs. And been listening a lot to the engineer in my life right now, and he is talking about this jobs to be done framework, and how they're having people come in and help them figure out what jobs need to get done. And it's not about careers and titles, which is hard because that's what we talk in and that's what all the predictions talk about. But it's really about looking at what is the work to be done in the future, and how do we help our clients prepare for that? And where will that work need to be done? Because it is going to shift in terms of the types of jobs that are going to be available. But this is like, if you were looking for some good news right now, this is some good news right now, right? We've got a huge amount of growth coming in the work to be done. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard this, but this is fascinating. So it's snowing in New Orleans for the first time in 20 years. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I'm wondering if that is one of our colleagues, but it's great to have you here. And Emily from Washington, great to have you here too. So when we think about the growth, what does that mean? Of course, it doesn't mean growth right now necessarily, especially for some industries. So what we've heard a lot about is in this short term, and some people have said like in this next 3 years, there's going to be a hard shift, especially for entry level careers, because a lot of those entry level careers are the things that are easily replaced by some of these technologies. So you think entry level accounting, entry level bookkeeping, assisting, even technology like entry level coding, finance, a lot of those things are easily replaced by technology, and yet the new jobs aren't spun up yet, right? We don't have these new technologies ready for these young people to start marketing or selling or doing whatever they do based on their skill set. And so there is this period here where and maybe this is the kind of coming off of the 14 million jobs predicted lost in the last World Economic Forum report, where there's a bright future and we can see these technologies that are going to create jobs kind of coming on the horizon, but there's not necessarily a replacement job for those people maybe in the same field that they were in before. So what do we do to help them take that on and to make that transition? So you might remember a few months ago when I shared this slideshow about reimagining blue collar jobs and how blue collar jobs have changed so much, and there's huge growth in things like, solar installation, wind technicians. There's just, there's some areas there. Fleet management was one of them. That there's some areas where there is growth happening right now that may not be necessarily aligned with what someone thought they were going to do for their life, right? But I can see the connections. And I think most of us do this work because it's inherent some ways for us to just see those connections. Like, oh, if someone's gone into accounting or even finance, like fleet management might make great sense for them right now, or even staying in their same field of accounting and finance or whatever, but in those industries where there's growth happening, because yes, the technologies are going to be able to do some of the jobs, but that doesn't mean it's eliminating that job altogether in every company. And so when the company is experiencing growth, there's an opportunity for those jobs, even when those jobs might be collectively not at the highest rate of growth, or even at deteriorating in the growth. So we're looking at what's going on right now, that especially if we've got someone who's about to graduate from college or has graduated in the last year and is struggling, right? They're not alone. There is some pressure in that space right now. And there's research showing kind of global underemployment and unemployment of our young people. And so how do we help them kind of hold on and find the things that can keep their skills and keep their momentum in the workplace until these new jobs are kind of spinning out into the market? When you look at, just the impact of drone technology, and Nakaska and I have been talking a little bit about the biochemical stuff where they can make make a kidney out of 3D printing bio tissues. And what does that look like in 3 years? Then there's going to be jobs in those companies. They're going to need accountants and finance and salespeople and marketing people and all of that, but they're just not ready for that yet, right? The technologies are still in that infancy, startup phase. And so looking at what's going on right now, how can we help them kind of connect the dots to what's happening right now? And that's where we go to some of the LinkedIn data, which we'll get to here in just a second. But before we go there, let's look at some of the specifics under this World Economic report, because we showed the overall growth, which is great. Now, remember, these are predictions. They are, so we're looking at themes. We don't want to get too caught up in any one title or number or any of that. That's not what it's about. And sometimes our clients can go there. It's just like an assessment, right? You give them an assessment and tells them 20 things they should think about, and they hone in on one thing and say, oh, this is telling me I'm supposed to be this. And we've got to help them work through those kind of narrow things that happen when we're in change, right? We tend to focus in on one thing or have that pessimistic view or whatever it might be. And so we've got to get out of that black and white thinking and think about the trends and the gray areas that this is creating based on the predictions. Okay, so we got the good news, 78 million jobs net created in the next 5 years is this prediction. Now, where are they coming to? So what's the what are we looking at here? There we go. This is the right page. So fastest growing jobs, and a lot of them, see that engineer, AI, software, and then let's say you're working with someone who's not a software person. Say, okay, so how can their skill set plug into this space and add value? Where would they come alongside this kind of growth and add value? Because it's not necessarily that everyone's going to want to do this kind of career or that they want to go back to school and learn how to do this, but it's where would they plug in? So how does their skill set, whether they're sales, marketing, customer service, and where would they plug in? Because these might be the top growing jobs, but that doesn't mean that the ones that come alongside and support them and those types of things aren't right there as well. Last thing I'll say is that this is global data. So helping our clients look at regional data, or if they are, staying in a local area, looking at local data, talking to your local community colleges usually have a good pulse on this type of thing. They have an advisory board. Paying attention to what's going on locally can be helpful too, because we've got geographic pockets in every region, especially in the US. There's different things going on in each geography. So that's going to be important. You might look at this and our clients go, ugh, right? I don't want to do any of those things. Well, that's okay. We're not saying that you have to do any of those things to have a growing career, but you're going to look at those trends and you're going to say, okay, what might this mean for me and for my skill sets? Which is, of course, where you all come in helping people connect those dots, because it's not always easy. Just like it might not be when they get assessment results and they have to go through and think about how do those dots connect. So those are the growing jobs. Then, of course, we get the declining jobs. And again, here you're looking at themes. You're looking at the overall number of the people in these jobs declining, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the job is completely going away. And you look at some of this, like telemarketers. I'm going to see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Telemarketers, retail, postal clerk, those types of repetitive jobs, accounting clerks. So either we can move into growing fields where those jobs might still be because they're not going away altogether. We also might look at where's the next step, or where's that field going to still be necessary even though there is a technology coming in. What will the human be needing to do alongside that technology? We can have all of those conversations with people as well. So drop in the chat any themes you're seeing, any concerns that your clients are having with relating to these, what's going on in the market. And again, these are predictions, and we don't know exactly where everything is going to go. We can see what does that look like. And I look at something like graphic designers. Yes, those might go down, but what does that look like for each individual business? And doesn't mean that there won't still be a need for that. So I love this report, and you can dive in a little bit deeper. When you look at some of the other growing jobs, you get past the technology. So even just going a few pages in, like going hiking in Colorado, right? 80% of the people are on 10% of the trails, the easiest ones to get to. So everybody's going to look at those top two graphs, but there's a lot more in there if you dig a little bit deeper on other trends, other jobs that are growing that might be more appropriate for your clients, or again, might pop up a theme that is more appropriate. So further down, not even that much further down, just a few more pages down, we get to laborers, farm workers, agricultural workers, truck drivers, things that are almost the opposite of those technology jobs that were on the first page: nursing professionals, university and higher education teachers. And you might say, oh, we've got a lot of universities closing down. Yes, but people will need to reskill. They'll need to learn. They might be learning differently. Universities might look different, and there may still be a shakeup in that market, but is never going to go away. And in fact, right here, it's got a little tiny bit of growth. And then these are very similar to the ones that we were looking at before in terms of the shrinkage. But I think it's interesting to look at the comparison between the first top growing jobs and then this one, because they're so wildly different. Just a few pages in the report, different types of fast growing jobs and what that might look like. And again, these are based on reports from companies, so it gives us a little bit of opportunity to just look at what's going on. Now, then you look at a few more pages down, it says, what is causing these impacts? And I always think this is good for us to look at too, because we often think, oh, technology is kind of eliminating these jobs. And you'll see that, yeah, technology is eliminating jobs, but it's also creating a ton of jobs. So it's just causing the most churn. Technology is causing the most churn, but that doesn't mean overall it's eliminating jobs. It's actually creating more than it eliminates, but man, it's causing a lot of disruption, right? Then you look at the aging population and aging and declining working populations. People are replacing jobs because they can't hire for those jobs anymore. There's not enough people to do jobs in a lot of countries. There's some very interesting country graphics in here as well. And we just get this picture of, okay, what is causing the technology changes, the other types of changes, and what might that mean for my geographic area or my industry? So when you're working with a client, for them to kind of dig a little deeper and think, what does this mean for me, my geography, my industry, my type of work? Because it's going to impact everyone a little bit different. And sometimes it may not really impact people for a while, depending on where they are and what their career looks like. So there's a few other interesting things in there. If you have not downloaded the report yet, World Economic Forum Jobs, Future of Jobs Report 2025. It's a big, long URL, so I feel like putting the URL up there isn't going to help you much. If you have trouble finding the URL, do a little note down there, and if someone else doesn't post it before I get to it, I'll come around and post that article as the direct link to go in and download it as well. Now, it's interesting as we look at global economic trends. Obviously some big changes going on here in the US, but there's political changes going on in many countries around the world. And what does that mean for jobs? And it's one of the big forces when you look at their report is not just demographics, but also global economics. And what does that mean for jobs? And so you can see kind of the offshoring, reshoring that's happening, an increase in government subsidies, increase in geopolitical division and conflicts. And what does that mean for jobs? And this is going to be very different for each person in their industry and in their geography. But when you look at like automotive, right? Automotive, oh, thanks, Kathleen. That while automotive had a huge splurge right after COVID, and then it was hard for them to make cars because of the Ukraine conflict. Actually, there's some critical car parts that are made in Ukraine, and now we're seeing a transition of that market again to where they're slowing down production. So it's just that market is really driven by geopolitical forces. And if we're working with people in that market, it's important that they stay up on what does that mean for their industry. So watching their industry publications, listening to their own company announcements, maybe kind of reading between the lines of what are they saying, what are they not saying, because all of these get a little touchy too, right? When we're talking about how politics and economics impact jobs. But we have to step back a minute from that and just reality, right? Reality of the war in Ukraine is this to your job, regardless of the politics around it and what you might believe the US or wherever country you're from should be doing involved or not. When you're talking about jobs, there's the tangible piece of it, right? Oh, these things are made there. That is going to impact this part of every economy in every part of the world. And I found it interesting. In one of these, I think it might be this report further down, being globally aware, they showed as not being as important in the future of a skill. And I kind of wondered where that was coming from, because what I see is that all of our jobs are so interconnected to the global economy, to global supply chains. And if you're not paying attention to what that means for your career, for your clients' careers, it is going to hit you when you least expect it. And maybe a decade ago, 15 years ago, when I started doing this work, we got surprised by things. But today, there's a lot of opportunity to learn, and you don't have to do it alone, right? Your clients don't have to do it alone. Just figuring out what are those publications that give them that industry specific, business specific news. We don't have to have all the noise if we don't want it. Or we can pick the noise that we do want, but just to get really practical of what does this mean for your industry, for the future of your industry, both the technology pieces of it, as well as the demographics and the geopolitical pieces of it. Because those are I would say those are the three biggest drivers when you look at the list and you kind of boil it down. Those are the biggest things that are going to impact the careers of the future, not just the technology, but also the demographics and specific demographics of specific geographies, as well as the way that politics plays into companies, the way they can do work, the places they want to do work, and the regulations they have to follow. All of that is going to build and destroy industries that if we stick our head in the sand, we're going to get caught off guard. Global citizenship, what they showed as a decreasing use. And I find that interesting. So there's this whole skills graph. I'll show it to you while I'm looking at it. This is further down a little bit in the report. And you also have to think about what career level were they talking about here. Some of these bullet points, data points, I wonder what career level people were talking about, because I also look at things like quality control, decreasing in use. It's interesting. Just dependability and attention to detail, decreasing in use. I'm hiring right now, and this is one of my biggest things, right? So it's interesting. Maybe they were looking at more mid-level or upper level jobs, which I could see some of this. It's just interesting to look at it. And again, look at the themes, look at the trends, and thinking about how it appeals or applies to your person and the jobs that they're doing. So the last piece that I wanted to share, because it's one of the other data points running around, is the LinkedIn top 15 growing jobs. And I might not be able to pull this up right now because I think I lost it. Where did you go, LinkedIn? So this is the other piece of it. So I said the World Economic Forum report is based on predictions and a survey around predictions, whereas the LinkedIn report is focused on looking at the last 3 years. They say the last 3 years of job postings. And of course, they have a big market, but we've got to remember too that it is somewhat myopic, because there's a whole bunch of different types of careers that would never post on LinkedIn. Like if I'm hiring a counselor, I'm not going to post that on LinkedIn. It's just that, the two don't really fit that well. Blue collar jobs oftentimes aren't posted on LinkedIn because that's not where their audience is. So when we look at this LinkedIn list of the top 15 growing jobs, let me see if I can find it real quick. I don't know what happened. We've got to remember that, yes, they've got a lot of data, but they also have kind of biased data, because they're looking at jobs posted on their platform, which doesn't encompass the whole list of jobs that we could have. So their list is here. This one is a little bit shorter link. I can actually maybe share with you. And let me see. So they're looking at the jobs on the rise, but that's based on past data, not future predictive data. So I find the headline to be a little bit misleading because it's the jobs that are rising. I guess that's on the rise. Anyways, it's not a prediction. It's really this is what they've seen over the last 3 years, with a little bit of a caveat that they're going to be missing some verticals because those jobs just don't get posted on LinkedIn. Hands-on labor type jobs, those types of things. So we can look at this and feel kind of myopic. I don't know. It's like they get repetitive. But again, they've got a lot of data, but not broad data on all the different spectrum of careers. So I don't know if that's fair, but that's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, jobs on the rise. Thank you, Kathleen, for sharing that as well. And easy to find. So when I look at this, it feels like LinkedIn jobs, right? You get the AI, physical therapist. So actually that one kind of surprised me because again, it's just not something that you would see a lot hands-on type of work, but it's good. Workforce development manager. I can see, people are posting on LinkedIn because they know their audience is there. So going to take it with a little grain of salt. Travel advisor, that one again, a little surprising. One of those careers that's coming back post-COVID is interesting. Love to hear if any of these surprised any of you like they surprised me. Event coordinator, director of development or advancement, major gifts, usually related, in university type of settings. Outside sales representative, sustainability specialist, security guard. Again, that one surprised me, just that it's showing up here because not something I typically see posted here. Community planner, AI researcher, treasury manager, land agent, grants consultant. It's a good one for our writers, right? Some of the writing type jobs might be going down, but there's one going up. Director of employer relations, chief growth officer, so sales jobs, bridge engineer, private equity analyst, research librarian. You can see that there's a few more there that people can look at. So this is a little bit different take because again, it's based on the things that are posted in the last 2 or 3 years versus that future focused one that the World Economic Forum report is taking. But we can look at trends. We can look at the people that support those folks, or what does this mean? So physical therapist is growing. What does that mean? What other jobs might be growing because that is growing? And that's what we want to talk about with our clients. It isn't about shoving them into any of these specific jobs. It's about looking at the trends like travel. Lillian, yeah, hi, thanks. Like looking at that and saying, okay, what does that mean? What other things might be growing that our client wants to do? Hospitality in general. What else might that look like? That isn't to the point of growth where it hit the list, but is still having growth and opportunity created for our clients. And that's the main goal, right? That's the main goal, is for these to be idea giving, life giving, and create ideas around opportunities, not that we're looking at one specific entry in the list and helping our clients reframe that, because all of us know, if we've ever given an assessment to a client, that the first thing they do is they look at that list as kind of a prescription, right? These are the things I can be. And it's like, no, these are ideas. And let's look at what the idea is that this is saying. This says you might enjoy these types of work, like this type of thing, have these types of skills. And it can always be expanded on and bring some more thought to it, creativity to it, and get outside of the box. These are going to be, fairly inside of the box ideas because they're coming from large data pools, but that doesn't mean that there's not growth in something a little bit more niche that could also be a good fit for our clients. Yes. And this is what I love about things like ChatGPT. So we could even go, and we're not going to do this live, but you could do it. You go on to ChatGPT and you say, okay, based on the top 15 or top 25 or whatever it was from LinkedIn, jobs on the rise, what are supporting jobs or similar jobs that might also be growing that don't require a degree? or that only require a 2-year degree, or whatever it might be. And it's part of the beauty of that system is it will help you brainstorm and think about things that you or I or our clients wouldn't think of because it's not in our worldview. And so I love to do that with a system, like ChatGPT, Perplexity. You can use Claude. I typically use Claude for more writing activities, but brainstorming just to jump in there and start having a chat around what does this mean and what some ideas might be for different types of people when we're noticing those types of trends, and what does that look like. And some ideas might be obvious, like physical therapy assistant, and some ideas might not be as obvious, and the tools can help us brainstorm around that. So on that note, we are doing our second session in our AI series tomorrow. So if you are interested in learning about how to use AI with your work with your clients, we've got our series going on. Last week we talked about using AI in career coaching. Tomorrow we're talking about using AI in resume and profile creation. I'm not going to say writing because not everyone wants to use it to write, and there's still a lot of powerful ways you can use it. And then next week we'll be talking about it in job search and interview prep. So if you're interested in joining us for that, check that out. Then I'd be remiss if I didn't say that coming up here soon on February 6th, that a 3-payment plan will end for our symposium in April in Baltimore. So we only have 2 months left. I can't believe it. 2.5 months left until that rolls around. We have some amazing speakers coming to join us, and always a great opportunity to meet thought leaders in the industry. Everyone who comes, even if they're not speaking, everyone who comes is leading in this industry or wanting to be, or learning and striving to know and stay on top of the trends. And that's why we get together and we love it. So join us for that if you haven't registered yet. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. We're coming up on some big announcements, so watch for those. And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.